All right, let's get right into it. Today we're unpacking a truly bizarre, high-stakes geopolitical battle that's literally crossing the North American border every single day. You know, when we hear the words trade war, our minds usually jump straight to what? Steel, automobiles, maybe high-tech microchips. We almost never think about the stuff we toss in the trash. But believe it or not, right now, garbage is the absolute center of a massive brewing diplomatic standoff between the United States and Canada. So here's the core mystery we really need to figure out today. Why on earth does a modern, wealthy place like the Canadian province of Ontario box up a massive chunk of its trash and send it on a road trip south? It just seems totally counterintuitive, right? You'd think a region with that much open land could manage its own refuse. And yet, fleets of heavy dump trucks are crossing that border daily, turning everyday waste management into this highly integrated, international logistical web. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this, 40 million tons. That is the actual amount of trash exported from Ontario specifically into Michigan over a recent 16-year window. 40 million. And hey, we aren't just talking about your leftover dinner scraps here. This is a massive, ongoing surge in industrial, commercial, and construction debris. Roughly 3.3 million tons make this cross-border journey every single year. It's wild. So here's our roadmap for making sense of this. We'll look at the cross-border trash corridor itself, dive into the economics of garbage, explain the USMCA commodity loophole, trace the recent 2025 to 2026 trade war escalation, and finally, look at the domestic landfill crisis it's all triggering. All right, part one, the cross-border trash corridor. Let's look at how North America built a highly integrated waste disposal network. Ontario has developed this massive structural dependency on the U.S. Basically, they're using American landfills as a giant pressure valve for their municipal and commercial waste. A full 1/3 of the province's garbage is exported straight to the U.S. This isn't some quick temporary band-aid either. This has been a deeply ingrained feature of their municipal infrastructure for decades now. But to really get why this happens, we've got to follow the money. Which brings us to part two, the economics of garbage. Let's follow the money behind this transboundary trash trade. Okay, so it all boils down to plain old economic arbitrage. Michigan charges an incredibly cheap tipping fee of just 36 cents per ton of waste. Think about that, 36 cents. For haulers up in Ontario, it is literally more profitable to burn diesel fuel, pay for all the transport logistics, and haul waste across international lines than it is to process it at home, where regulatory costs are through the roof and landfill space is severely constrained. For private waste management firms, dumping in Michigan is just good business. Naturally, Michigan isn't entirely thrilled about being a dumping ground. To deter this massive influx, Governor Gretchen Whitmer recently proposed aggressively hiking that fee up to $5 per ton. Now, jumping from 36 cents to $5 is a totally astronomical percentage increase. It's a move intentionally designed to wipe out that economic incentive drawing in Canadian trash, while ideally funding local environmental cleanups along the way. Moving on to part three, the USMCA commodity loophole and the legal frameworks actually protecting international trash. Now you might be wondering, why don't the border guards just turn these trucks around? Well, here is the absolute aha moment of this whole situation. Under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USCMC, garbage is not legally classified as trash. Nope, it is a legally protected, tariff-free commodity. Because it's sourced entirely within North America, a truckload of drywall scraps and construction debris enjoys the exact same cross-border trade protections as a truckload of shiny new auto parts. And it goes even deeper than international treaties. The U.S. Constitution itself strictly prohibits individual states, like Michigan, from unilaterally banning Canadian waste or slapping them with discriminatory international fees. Because of the Dormant Commerce Clause and decades of Supreme Court precedent, states legally cannot treat out-of-state or international waste any differently than their own local trash. Basically, their hands are completely tied. All right, part four, the 2025 to 2026 trade war. Let's look at the chronological escalation of tariffs and political maneuvering. If we look back over the past year and a half, we've seen a rapid, incredibly tense escalation. It all kicked off in early 2025 with Donald Trump's near-universal 25% tariff threats. That immediately triggered Ontario Premier Doug Ford to slap a retaliatory surcharge on electricity exports. Fast forward to February 2026, and the U.S. Supreme Court struck down unilateral emergency tariffs, completely setting the stage for an explosive USMCA joint review coming up this July. So far, this transboundary waste trade has only survived this executive chess match because of those initial USMCA exemptions. But, and this is a massive but, if the USMCA framework breaks down during the upcoming July 2026 review, Canadian waste could suddenly, overnight, lose its protected commodity status. It would instantly be hit with massive WTO or Section 301 tariffs, effectively pricing it completely out of the U.S. market.
Which leads us to our final section, Part 5, the domestic landfill crisis and Ontario's urgent scramble for self-reliance.
Industry reports confirm we are looking at a literal ticking clock here. If the U.S. border completely closes to waste imports, Ontario will quite literally run out of places to put its garbage by the year 2034. Without that Michigan pressure valve keeping the system afloat, they are staring down the barrel of an absolute infrastructure crisis in less than a decade. This harsh strategic reality prompted Premier Doug Ford to aggressively vow domestic self-reliance. He famously told the public that Ontario needs to onshore every single widget they can. Suddenly, building out waste infrastructure is no longer just some boring municipal or environmental issue. It has morphed into a matter of urgent economic and national security. To pull off this massive domestic pivot, the provincial government actually used the looming U.S. tariff threat to legally fast-track some highly controversial local sites. They pushed through Bill 5, completely bypassing local environmental reviews and municipal pushback to resurrect a dormant site known as the York 1 Dresden landfill. They are actively rewriting local zoning rules right now, all under the banner of a geopolitical emergency. So, as we brace for the July 2026 USMCA negotiations, we're left staring at this really bizarre form of mutually assured destruction. Can these deeply integrated economies truly sever trade ties without literally drowning in their own garbage? It's a pretty stark reminder that even the trash we toss out without a second thought is tied directly into global macroeconomics. Definitely keep an eye on this space, because it's only going to get more interesting.